welcome to Daily Pali Reading. Today we're going to do something a little different. Last night I was reading through De Silva's Pali Primer, and I came across a passage that really just jumped out at me. If you're not familiar with that primer, it is a very good way to get into Pali. It's certainly a lot more manageable than something like Warder. There's another even older, I believe, Pali grammar guide, Narada. That's a good one as well, both of which are available for free online in various PDF formats, and I will link to those. So yes, this is Lily De Silva's Pali Primer, Chapter 29, Exercise 6. Like I said, this one jumped out at me. I will read through this sentence. We will talk about it. It has some interesting grammatical features, and then I think the overall content of what's being said is interesting. So there's a non-grammatical interest as well. Bhikkhu di pasa aching olokento anicca sanyang vadento nisidi. So we start here with bhikkhu. This is our masculine nominative singular. If you're not familiar with this word, you will get familiar with it pretty quickly. This is our subject. Once we know that this is our subject, of course, we can scan through here, but it's not a bad idea to see if we can locate a main verb, which is at the end of the sentence. This is a standard Pali prose format. So all the way here at the end, we have nesidi. Now, this is the third person singular aorist active from nesidity. Nesidity is to sit down, to be seated. And this is the aorist, so it's in the past tense. So it's something along the lines of took a seat, was seated, sat down. Keep all of these in mind. Then what is happening, we can scan through here and we'll notice that there are two present active participles. They're nominative, masculine nominative singular present participles. And that tells us that they are modifying bhikkhu. They are describing bhikkhu. A participle is simply a verbal adjective. So it's really an adjective. We can think of these as adjectives, but they have a verbal quality in that if they're transitive, they can take an object. So they don't have a tense. Their tense is sort of dependent upon the main verb, which is in the past tense. But when we have a present participle with a past tense, it means, or a present participle with any tense, it means that this action is going on at the same time as the main verb. So let's just go through and talk about the meanings here. Olokento is a very interesting word. To be honest, I don't think I've seen it apart from this example. This O is also seen as ava. This does come up quite a bit. So this is a prefix, and it means to kind of, it has some notion of downward motion. And then this keti part, or loketi, I should say, has to do with looking. This is from the word lok, which gives us words like loka, the visible world, and aloka, which is light. And in this case, it's connected with, or I should say the root is connected with sight, maybe with visibility. When we take this all together, and I'm not, by the way, I'm not saying that we can determine the meaning by breaking these verbs apart and looking at the prefix and the verb. It can maybe help us understand what's going on, but actually we always just have to look up what the definition is, which is based on the usage, or we can check the Pali English Dictionary. And the idea here is that it means to examine, contemplate, to look down or over, maybe to survey, inspect, consider. And then because it has this idea of examining and contemplating, it's going to take an object. And that object is right here, a ching. A ching is a ray of light, a beam, or a flame. And it's probably a flame because the word before it is dipasa. I didn't write that down. It's from Deepa, which now it could mean island. Deepa also means lamp. So let's put all of this together. Surveying, maybe I think contemplating is a better word. Contemplating the flame of a lamp's flame. Then we'll go to our other participle here. And if you're wondering about why I put these asterisks here, in the original text, if you look that up, in parentheses, De Silva has glossed the meaning of anicca sanyang and vadento. We have for vadento developing. If we look that up, we'll see that vadento is, again, masculine nominative singular present active participle from vadeti, which is actually the causative from vadati. Vadati means to increase, and the causative to practice or to cause to prosper or to cause to increase, to develop is, that makes sense, I think. Again, with the causative, we can kind of determine, we should in some sense be able to figure out what it might mean from the basic verb. But again, it's best just to check. It's possible that it could have another meaning altogether. So we always really do need to check if we don't know. So in this case, another participle is describing this monk developing, and then anicca sanyang. De Silva also glosses this as the perception of impermanence. And this came up in daily Pali reading. It was one of the Anguttara Nikaya readings. If we look this word up, we're going to find that it's obviously a compound. And in this case, I'm not even going to talk about the name of the compound, but we'll just see how it has to function. Sanya means perception, and this is the accusative, believe accusative feminine singular. So this is the object, perception, and then we have this word anicca, impermanence. We could put those together, impermanence perception, developing impermanence perception, and that gives us kind of an idea, but really what's going on is this word here is the object, and it's relating to this other part of the compound. It would be something like anicchasa, the perception of impermanence. So here is the one of the interesting grammatical points that I think we can consider, and that is how these participles are actually to be understood. We know that this bhikkhu has taken a seat, has sat down. This is a part of some sort of meditation or samadhi or sati practice. What I would like to ask, dear listener, is that of you is to think about the relationship between these participles. We certainly can understand them simply as sat down, doing A, doing B. But I think that doing B here, this second participle, is actually dependent upon the first. So I think we could get away with something like, because the bhikkhu is contemplating the flame of a lamp, he is developing the perception of impermanence. Or, and again, this is not stated, this is just this is something that we would bring to the text to clarify what's going on. Or, in order to develop the perception of impermanence. The monk is doing this. One last time, I'm not saying that the participles carry with them that meaning necessarily, but I'm simply suggesting that this is something that we can put together in our own minds when we're reading this and that we're understanding how these actions are related. So, this idea of contemplating the flame of a lamp is in Buddhaghosa's Visuddhimagga, is treated under the kasina section. In other words, having an object of meditation. And he specifies 10. Some are colors and colored discs. Light is one of them. Also, I believe that in the Yoga Vachara, this contemplating a flame is mentioned, or certainly in the more, quote, esoteric Theravada practices, and in many styles of meditation. I think contemplating a flame, etc., is recommended, or is practiced anyway. Something to think about here is that though this would be a part of sati or samadhi, developing concentration, it's not simply that we develop mindfulness and leave it at that. The mindfulness is there to help us, amongst other things, develop wisdom. And the wisdom that is being developed here is the perception of impermanence. So, dear listener, you can let me know if this is of any interest to you. I hope that I didn't mangle this too badly. And it's hard to believe that I could take a short sentence like this and make an incredibly long video as I've done. So I am struggling to find ways to shorten these, tighten them up a little bit. I will see what I can do in the future. Until then, peace.